What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Parabellum Podcast. As always, I'm Sean, your host and owner of Parabellum Strength and Fitness. Last week, I talked about the Army's combat fitness test and how Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth mandated that the military uh, rethink and reorganize combat fitness standards to be gender neutral. So I also said that would take a while to implement. However, the Army surprised me and did it rather quickly. Uh, however, I don't think, and yes, this is going to be extremely opinionated, that they did a great job in their changes. So last week I went over the events for the Army Combat Fitness Test, which as of now will go away June 1st of 2025 and be replaced with the Army Fitness Test. I wonder what officer got a great bullet point for coming up with that one. Uh, anyway, all the Army did was make it gender and age neutral. They have yet to release what those standards will look like, as far as what I could find online. Military Times, I'm going to pull up an article from them, said that the Army had declined comment on that at this time. I'm sure they will roll something out towards the end of May and require units to begin taking that test at the very least by mid-July, somewhere around in there. Um, but they said that all ACFT scores will stand until June of 2025. So what'd they do? They just removed the standing power throw. That was it. They took away a movement that, in my opinion, is highly indicative of how much power an individual can produce. So I'm going to pull up a video real quick of the standing power throw. Hopefully it won't bore you too much. I will do my best not to bore you because that's not my intention. However, here it is. So
The
this
standing
is
power throw is the second event of the Army Combat Fitness Test. The standing power throw measures upper and lower body explosive power, total body flexibility, and dynamic balance. The soldier will face away from the start line, grasp the 10-pound medicine ball with both hands at the hip level, and stand with both heels at, but not beyond, the start line. Soldiers may choose to stand further from the start line to reduce the risk of stepping on or beyond be provided to remove excess moisture or and as far around the sides of the ball as possible. No part of the soldier's body may touch on or beyond the start line throughout the test event. This will result.
okay. I'm going to pause that right there. If you notice, that individual did much more of a squat than a hip hinge. There's another movement that's extremely similar to the standing power throw, and it's very popular. It's called a kettlebell swing. And if you want to get really cool with it, it's an American kettlebell swing where the bell goes over the head. It's a measurement of your hip flexor and glute and hamstring, how much force they can produce. I use this movement to train football players, wrestlers, MMA fighters. I even use it to train baseball players, basketball players. Why? Because if you have powerful hips, hip flexors, glutes, and hamstrings, you can increase your speed and increase the height with which you jump. Now, for football players, I think it's a great way to increase power because they're contact sport athletes, football players, wrestlers, MMA fighters. They're going to have to hit another human body with their own body with force. And that force is going to come from the lumbo hip complex, which is your glutes, hip flexors, and even hamstrings. So they removed this event. And one of the reasons they removed this event, it's not being taught properly. The gentleman just did a squat instead of a hip hinge. So we're going to keep going.
The soldier's feet may leave the ground, but may not step on or beyond the line and must maintain their balance. If the soldier falls to the ground in any direction, this is also a fault. The soldier will have 2 record throws, unless faulting on both throws where the soldier will be granted.
Okay. The female individual, I'm going to back this up here just so I can highlight it. Okay. She has bent arms. She is shortening what's called in biomechanics the moment arm, and that is the momentum arm. So think of yourself as being a catapult here. If you shorten the arm of the catapult, you are shortening the distance with which you're wanting to sling the element that you're wanting to sling. Don't know how to really put that, but hey, that sounded good to me. So if you're, again, they are not teaching this movement properly. They didn't have anyone who understands biomechanics come out and show them how to do this.
Throws where the soldier will be granted a third and final throw. The farthest throw counts for record. The grader at the start line must record both records.
Okay. Notice this little jump here.
The farthest throw counts.
Okay. That jump is actually taking away the power that she could be producing, because that jump, when you leave the ground, you're no longer producing that force through the ground. If she's going to leave the ground, she should be raising up off the heels onto the toes and almost falling forward, because she's squeezing her glutes so hard that her hips fly forward. This will also help with back extension so that she can gain more distance on that ball.
For record. The grader at the start line must record both record throws. Only the longer of the 2 recorded throws will count as the record throw. The throw attempt. If a soldier faults on a record throw, they will.
You saw the jump yet again. The jump is taking away momentum.
Will receive a raw score of 0.0 meters. If a soldier faults on both record throws, they will be allowed 1 additional attempt to score on the SPT. If a soldier faults on all 3 record throws, they will receive a raw score of 0.0 meters for the SPT.
Okay. So now I've shown you that video. We're going to come over here to the Military Times article. No more ball yeet. I'm assuming yeet means throw. Sorry. So I'm going to highlight among the notable adjustments, which will be likely met with glee across the ranks, is the removal of the standing power throw, an event requiring soldiers to hurl a 10-pound medicine ball backward over their heads. The event, often ridiculed by service members, is seen as an outlier that emphasizes technique over strength or endurance. Success on the event was also largely correlated with a soldier's height. Okay, that last part is correct. Is correct. The longer your arms, the longer your legs, the taller you are, the more successful you can be at that event, because you have longer moment arms, which are your arms and your legs. You have more leverage. However, my issue with this is seen as an outlier that emphasizes technique over strength or endurance. My issue is the fact that no one's taught how to properly do this. No one's even taught properly how to deadlift. And if you've been in a gym longer than, I don't know, a year, you have figured out that technique or form is the most important thing for you to gain strength. If you don't have proper technique or form, you are guaranteed an injury. All those young men, and I'm going to talk about, what I'm talking about is teenagers that go in there and they're lifting what they think is a bunch of weight. Young kid, I see it all the time on social media, people chanting and cheering for somebody deadlifting 405. I'm not taking away from that. If I see a 15-year-old deadlifting 405, my hat's off to them. If I see a 35-year-old deadlifting 405, my question is, have you been in the gym longer than 2 years? If you have, we're doing something wrong. Your technique is off. Your form is off. You need to be taught how to do it properly. No one's teaching that properly. No one's teaching it properly. No one's teaching the purpose behind it. They give you some generalized pat answer that makes no real sense, and they don't put it into why do you need to do this. So now it's an outlier that emphasizes technique over strength. Hey, guess what? If you taught people how to run, you'd see a better production. And there's a technique to running. If you taught people how to deadlift, 340 would be a joke. If you taught people how to do a proper farmer's carry and how to do a proper sled drag, where to place their feet, how to sink their hips, it would be a joke. If you taught them how to do a proper sprint, it would be a joke. A proper hand release push-up. So my issue is that instead of teaching them the technique, we'll just remove it. And they're removing something that is of great use. Now, is it great to measure it by distance? Maybe, maybe not. That can be argued. I don't see another way to measure it. I don't see a point. The only other way to measure it is kind of go to a strong man like a keg throw, if you're familiar with that. But then there's the safety issue of that. But the standing power throw, man, there's plenty of pro athletes that are doing that. Plenty of them. I was just watching Phil Daru this morning. Phil Daru is a extremely sought after MMA strength and conditioning coach. And he's got an NFL player in his gym doing standing power throws with a 30-pound medicine ball because he's trying to increase the force production that this guy can put through the ground into his hips, into his lumbo hip complex, and move forward into a tackle. Or just get stronger. Not stronger, I'm sorry. More powerful, faster. Power equals speed if you train the speed as well. So let's just totally take that out and call it good. Why? Because the short folks are struggling with it. No, but if we go back to last week, there is almost a 3 to 4 meter difference in what the males and the females have to do. And on a good day, I'm 5'7", yet I could max this event. Why? Because I sat down and I looked at how to do it and I practiced it. Goes back to, we've got all these Connexes laying around every post with medicine balls in it, but how often are we training it? And how many people do we have who are properly educated and how the body should work? How many of those folks do we have out there teaching guys how to do it? Guys, gals, same. It's the military. They all bleed green. We're not properly teaching it, so instead they just get rid of it. Same thing with the leg tuck. Let's get rid of the leg tuck because a certain group of people are struggling to pass it. Why are we getting rid of it? Why don't we just train people how to do it? That's what the military is all about. Train, train, train. Rifle marksmanship. There isn't, I went to a school with some legends in the special operations community. And those of us that were in the 82nd kept saying advanced marksmanship, advanced marksmanship, advanced marksmanship. There was an individual there. He has a very large social media presence now. Looked at all of us and went, would you guys quit saying that? There's no such thing as advanced rifle marksmanship. There's just marksmanship. It's the 4 fundamentals of shooting: breathing, sight picture, proper body position, trigger squeeze. Now, you may have to figure out a new proper body position because who knows, you may be upside down. But if you have good cheek to stock weld and you've got that weapon pulled into your shoulder, you're in a tight body position. If you're controlling your breathing, there you go. If your trigger squeeze is the same, you're good to go. Sight picture. If you understand windage and elevation and you're not moving the weapon around on your body, you've got the same sight picture. It's simple. But we train that. We're expecting our soldiers. This is saying that this is a good test of athleticism. Maybe it was another article I pulled up. Give me a moment. I'm going to get to the standards here. But in this article, they're saying that it's a test of athleticism. This is the actual Army website. Why are we taking out one of the most athletic movements if it's a test of athleticism? I had a conversation with one of my professors yesterday who used to work for NASA. And he and I sat down and we looked at this test. And he said, it's not a bad test. And I said, no, it isn't. It really isn't. He said, the problem is you've got to teach people how to do all of this. And then you've got to train it constantly in order for them to see the benefits of it. And I said, I agree. I agree 100%. I said, here's what I was always told. Through the various, I was around for the Army combat test, which was really just a smoker. I was around for the testing of that. It never got implemented, never got off the ground. We just kept the APFT. Reasons unbeknownst to me. I have my opinion on it, but I won't share it. But I said, I was always told that there's some really, really smart sports kinesiologists. And he goes, what's that? I said, that's a good question. I don't know. He goes, there's just kinesiologists. I'm like, right. He's a doctor. And he goes, and I said, I was always told that there's some really smart sports kinesiologists coming up with all these tests. And he said, okay, I can kind of see it. However, I don't think they were that smart. And he has some experience with the military. And he said, I just don't see where it's that smart to come up with all of this and then not have the tools to train it. And I know if somebody high up in the military hears this, sees this, They're going to refute it, say that soldiers have every opportunity to train it. I'm out of touch. I left the military a year ago. A lot has changed in a year, blah, 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 blah. I guarantee you I can take a drive, go over to any post, be on there at 6 a.m., and I'm going to see a bunch of people running or details occurring. Instead of someone out there deadlifting, doing a sprint drag carry, I'm sure I'll see some people doing some planks and some hand release push-ups. But I won't see the other two events that require equipment. So instead, we just take an event that could have been very good for soldiers because it requires too much technique. It requires a lot of technique to learn how to shoot. Total soldier concept. Fitness. Physical fitness is right there at the top of the list of that. We want to increase lethality. It says right here, the 5-event AFT is designed to enhance soldier fitness, improve war fighting readiness, and increase the lethality of the force. Give me a soldier who can run somebody over. I'd say that's increasing lethality. We train, the Army combatives course is based off of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Show me a soldier that has powerful hips and can sling somebody around and put them on their back. I call that a more lethal soldier. Now, people can say, well, the 3-rep maximum deadlift will do that. That's not testing power. That's testing strength. There's a difference. Strength, slow grinding movement, just to put it basic. Power, an explosive movement. Where is that being trained here? Why aren't we trying to create people who can basically not only pick up that 340 pounds standing still, which, by the way, there's not a whole lot that happens in combat where you're standing still. You just became a target. But I would, and you can say, well, what's a 10-pound medicine ball going to do? That's how you train power. You train power at about 10% of your body weight. So sure. Okay. Well, what if we have a 200-pound soldier? Yes, they should be throwing a 20-pound medicine ball. I'm not going to argue that. But well, then we've got the 110-pound soldier throwing a 10-pound medicine ball, right? 10% of their body weight. We can argue this all day long, but the bottom line is they did very little. Now let's move on to what little standards they threw out. The AFT combat standard is sex neutral and age normed. So I'm assuming that means there's not going to be any more age categories. So if you are a 42-year-old infantryman, you will expect it to be able to hang with the 17-year-old infantryman. I agree with that. I do. You know, there's going to be a wide margin of what is a max score and what is a passing score, and everybody's going to be expected to get a minimum of 60 points in each event and an overall score of 350. Now, that's for combat MOSs. So, I agree with that. I do. I think if you're older, that shouldn't matter. If you're older and you can't achieve the standard, at least 60% in each event, it's probably time for you to move on. And there should be no shame in that. As you get older, there's certain things you just can't do, but the standard is going to be low enough that you're going to be fine. That's the thing. Anybody, well, I'm old, I can't meet that standard, then yeah, you do need to move on because you're using your age as an excuse. Am I going to run a 2 mile as fast as that 17-year-old who just came from a track team? Absolutely not. No, I'm not. But that 17-year-old who just came from a track team, odds are they're not going to deadlift what I do. Odds are they're not going to be able to do the sprint drag carry as fast as I am. So there is some balance there. And again, I don't see the point of the 2 mile run. Saw a first sergeant today who said that 2 mile run should be replaced with an 800-meter sprint in duty uniform, helmet, and body armor. And I said, add a weapon to it. Make it as realistic as we can to combat. I always thought that we should do that. I've always disagreed with the 2 mile run. That's not a great test of it is a great test of aerobic fitness. It's not a great test of combat fitness. I mean, like I said last week, there's not a single time in my 5 combat tours that I had to run 2 miles in shorts and a t-shirt. Not one time. And I can tell you this much. If you're having to run 2 miles in body armor in a combat situation, things have gone really, really bad. The last time that happened was most likely Vietnam. And soldiers were their load was much lighter then. Much, much lighter. We're asking guys on a regular basis to carry 100 pounds in addition to their own body weight. That's why the military is trying to come up with exoskeletons so that guys don't have to support that weight on their skeletal frame. So why are we testing something that's never going to happen? It's totally unrealistic. A half a mile run in full kit with a weapon, that's pretty realistic. That's pretty realistic. So for everyone who's not in a combat arms MOS, you still have to get 60 points in each event and an overall minimum score of 300. I totally agree with that. There should be a difference. However, if you're going to make a difference in their standards, there should be a difference in how much authority each rank has. I know that's going to really ruffle some feathers. But if a staff sergeant in the infantry is expected to do more than a staff sergeant that is, I don't know, mechanic, that staff sergeant that's in the infantry should have some more authority than that staff sergeant that's a mechanic. Or at the very least, be paid some more because more is expected. And we can get into the romanticism of it, that staff sergeant infantryman should strive to be more and whatever. And okay, I agree with that. You join the infantry, you should know what you're getting into. You should strive to be more. 60 points in each event should be a walk in the park for you. However, that staff sergeant should have some more incentive to maintain that, or should be rewarded for the choice that they made and the fact that they have served long enough and served meritoriously enough to be promoted to staff sergeant and shown the leadership potential. Something I never got. Army's always, we promote on potential. So I'm going to hop back over here to this real quick. There was something that had caught my eye. We need to have the same standard, male or female, in our combat roles. That was from SecDef. Soon we'll have nothing but the highest and equal standards for men and women in combat. Now, I agree with that 100%. That is called equality. I know this. I served next to plenty of males that they were not physically capable, and that always, best way to describe it, two things: ticked me off and made me very concerned, because when you have someone who is not physically capable in a combat arms role, and I'll speak for the infantry, they are the weak link in the chain, and that's where the chain breaks. Also, if that chain breaks, they just made it more difficult on everyone else, because now everyone else is having to carry their gear. Their gear is being split up amongst the squad or platoon. And now, as a leader, I've got to dedicate at least 2 other shooters to carry that individual. Let's say they, crapped out on a road march. And why aren't we talking about rucking? There's another thing. Rucking is part of military fitness. Why isn't that being added into the test? It doesn't need to be done on the same day. Shoot, it can be done 2 days later. But why aren't we adding that in there? Instead of, well, you're going to do a 12-miler quarterly, and if you don't pass, you do it again the next day. No, make that part of the AFT, whatever it is now. Throw a ruck in there. They're going to have to do it anyway. Test it. Ensure that they're capable. Make sure all the standards are extremely equal. Make sure the standards are high. I'll be the first to say it. I despised rucking. Rucking is difficult for short people. I despised it, but I got decent at it. I would complete 12 miles in 2 hours and 40 minutes. Is that world record setting time? Absolutely not. But I got to the point where I was running 6 miles of it because I had to. But I was definitely finishing well in front of that 3-hour time. And my only incentive, I just don't want to be made fun of. Not everybody has that drive. As I got older in the military, my incentive was, I'm a leader. If I can't make it in this time, what are my guys going to think of me? How can I lead them when I can't even meet the standard? And the last time I had to do a 12-miler timed, I was a platoon sergeant. I was a 35-year-old platoon sergeant. I was right around 10 years older than the next guy in my platoon. And still beating more than half the platoon across the line. My first sergeant would look at me as I come across the line and go, yep, old man did it again. And he'd look at my guys and go, how can you let this old man beat you? Well, the old man got educated because the old man sucked when he was in their shoes. Don't be that guy that says, don't be me. I wish I had the knowledge back then that I do now, because I could have been an animal back then. That's me now. I have the knowledge. I could have been so much more. Last thing, memo obtained by military.com leaves out cannon crew members. Soldiers who operate howitzers and are tasked with lifting and loading heavy artillery ammunition. It was unclear whether that was an oversight or a typo. It also excludes combat medics from its roster of combat jobs. I don't agree with that at all. Put those medics in there because those medics are serving in an infantry unit. Those medics have to be in just as good physical condition, if not better, because if those medics, God forbid, have to start doing their jobs, they are moving constantly under fire. So being in great physical condition, it does more than just, hey, you got six-pack abs and you look good in uniform. When you're under stress, because you're in great physical condition, your cardiorespiratory system is not working as hard. When a soldier is wounded, a medic, their stress level goes through the roof. Because I've never had a medic that didn't feel 100% responsible for every life in that platoon. They're almost like mothers. And I've watched medics that were working on a soldier that had a round through their head and blame themselves because that individual died. I couldn't keep him alive. But that medic was also in phenomenal physical condition. And he stayed calm because his heart wasn't jumping through the top of his skull. So medics should be held to the same standard. Now, howitzers, the test, you're doing a 3-rep max deadlift. When you're loading 155 howitzers and you're doing it rapidly, rapid fire, I don't think that deadlift is a great measurement. You know, if you fire 50, 60 rounds a day, which is pretty well unheard of for one gun crew, you're going to be pretty well smoked. So there needs to be something added to their training and then tested. Why does it need to be tested? Well, it needs to be tested to ensure that they're doing it. It's just like school. And soldiers are inherently lazy. Soldiers hate doing PT because it's forced upon them. So you have to test it in order to make sure that they're doing it. That's one of the biggest reasons for a PT test. It's just to make sure that they're doing it. However, if we were doing it properly, if we were teaching guys, and if we were incentivizing it, I think that there would be much greater enthusiasm about it and therefore greater results. So this was my rant on the change was, okay, we haven't released any standards and we are going to say that it's sex neutral and gender normalized, whatever, or age normed, whatever that means. And we're going to remove an event from it. That doesn't sound like the highest standards to me. If you're a current soldier, and I train current soldiers, I probably won't keep the ball throw in there, but I will definitely keep American kettlebell swings in there. Because the more powerful your hip flexors and glutes and hamstrings are, guess what? The more you can deadlift. So I'm going to keep training folks for the most part like I have been, simply because those training, the things that I do make them stronger. They make them more successful at the events that are left. So don't think that because that event's gone that you should stop training your lumbo hip complex altogether, and that you should stop doing things like an American kettlebell swing or a ball throw. I didn't pull it up, but there's video of George Kittle, the all-pro tight end from the San Francisco 49ers, doing a standing power throw multiple times down a football field, conducting the standing power throw, turning and sprinting to go get the ball, grab the ball, do it all over again. Because he's going to have to do that multiple times in a game. At one time, I know the Army wanted more body types like NFL safeties and linebackers. So their answer to that take away the events that the NFL safeties, linebackers, and tight ends do. Really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Anyway, if you are considering a career in the United States Army or any branch of service and you're smart, you're going to be in excellent shape before you go. The better physical condition you are in, the easier basic training will be, and the easier it will be to ingratiate yourself to your unit when you get there. Why? Because physical fitness gives you a greater sense of confidence. If you're physically fit and you don't, I'm not saying you won't struggle with what you're going to do in basic, but if it's not killing you and you feel confident to complete the task because you've put in the work ahead of time, you can be really successful. However, I will say to you, hire a coach and hire me because I lived it for 20 years. And on top of living it, I went and got education, and I'm still getting education on how to properly train people to become bigger, stronger, faster, have better endurance. I'm the guy for you to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish in the military. If you're active duty and you're watching this, go do CrossFit. Sure. Have at it. Have at it. Be smart. I hope you don't tear a rotator cuff because that's a lot of what I hear. And if you're at a great CrossFit gym where they emphasize real strength training and not just flinging 135 pounds around 30 times in a minute and 35 seconds, keep doing what you're doing. However, if you are in that gym and you're not seeing strength increases, I highly encourage you, give me a shot. Give me a shot. I will get you stronger. The difference between me and other coaches, yes, I do offer a money back guarantee. It comes with strings. There are strings attached. But if you do everything that I ask, and it is documented proof, it is in my contract that if you don't see results, you get your money back. Go look around for other fitness coaches, see if they do that. They're going to go, that dude's nuts. I never do that. No, absolutely not, because people are just going to look for their money back. Yeah, I've had that happen. But I've also had it in an ironclad contract where, no, you didn't do everything I told you to do. So you don't get your money back. And that person, thankfully, I said, yeah, you're right. You're right. So anyway, hope this helps somebody out. Hope it opens some eyes. If not, it was just my way of ranting for the day. I kind of miss the military on some days. Definitely miss it some days more than others. Remember, hey, if you like what you hear, like, share, subscribe, send me a DM, comment, something. Because at the end of the day, it is very difficult in this business to get a leg up. In the physical training business, industry, whatever you want to call it, you have people who are, especially guys my age, most of them are on TRT. I'm not. I don't hate on them for that. Just be honest about it. And then if you are honest, don't push aside the fact that is helping you tremendously with those six-pack abs and your strength. But for those of us who are not on that, hey, we're working just as hard, if not harder. But also I'm fighting against I don't have boobs and yoga pants. So the aesthetics part of it. If I post a video on social media and you come across it, like what you see, please just hit the like button. Throw a comment down. It's free. That doesn't cost you anything. You hear this, like it, again, doesn't cost you a dime to hit like, share, or the subscribe so that you get the notification bell. I'm not whining, but it is difficult for those of us who are doing all of this on our own, trying to get a business up off the ground. So I'm just asking you, especially if you're one of my brothers from the military, hey, just give me a like, share it, subscribe. I really appreciate it if you do. Very, very much. Also, if you hire me as a coach and you bring on another paying client, I do offer incentives for you. I do give money back or knock money off the following month's training or what have you. So shoot me a DM. We'll talk about that. I hope this helps everybody out. You guys have a great day. Remember, be strong. Do not let your hands be weak, for the Lord shall reward the work of your hands. 2 Chronicles 15:7. I live by it. You guys have a great one. Parabellum out.